Henry Rollins has retired from singing, but that hasn't stopped him from talking. Henry brings his Good to See You tour to New Zealand in July. Here he is now talking to the 13th Floor about talking.
This is the first tour that I've done in decades that didn't have a large travel component. Usually, if anyone has ever suffered through my shows before,
I have.
They know there's like the big middle section. There's like, I roll like a five trailers, and then here comes the feature.
Gotcha.
And the big meaty center is my trip to Antarctica or North Korea, etc.
Right.
And with COVID, I couldn't leave, and so I had to come up with material that was not exactly locally based, but was travel deprived.
Gotcha.
And so I've been living in Nashville for a couple of years, and it's been very nice, but completely uneventful. And so, as far as no one's tried to firebomb my house. Give them time.
Well, there have been a few shootings over there, so we follow all that stuff.
A few this morning, yeah. So enough catastrophic and interesting stuff happened while I was in Los Angeles during lockdown, enough to make for a good night of talking. And so this tour started in March of last year, and it's about 160 some shows in.
Okay.
And so I'm a pretty well-oiled machine at this point.
I'm sure you are.
and so the material, and I just got back from Europe, so I'm very much kind of in the non-USA material groove, and the set is slightly different outside of America. There's a lot of in the United States, there's a lot more USA references to politicians and to things, and I wouldn't want to wear out a non-American audience with things that are not their problem,
right? Or
at least not their problem yet.
Well, I was going to say it does become our problem eventually. It seems like.
Yeah. Hegemony is a thing we're really good at. So just give us time, and we'll slime you one way or the other. America, don't let it get on you. Anyway, so I have a good set of material that is good for a non-USA audience, and I've been doing it for the last 2.5 months. And so I'm back off the road for a minute, and I'm leaving in several days to do Australia and New Zealand.
Right.
And then there'll be another brief break, and then it's the United States until November 20. And then finally the tour will be over at about 200 and some shows.
Okay. Very good. So do you have to do you're moving to down here, Australia and New Zealand. Do you do a little research to prepare for such a, moving to various, see what's going on locally?
Absolutely. Just to be culturally respectful.
Right.
If I'm going to talk about a president or a prime minister, like, what the hell, shouldn't I get their name right?
Yeah,
and
that's
so
always good.
Things like that. Or if there's been some seismic event in a country, I don't want an audience member to be able to tell me about it and me have no idea what they're talking about.
Gotcha.
So that's how I pay respect to where I am. The one thing I never do is comment on any country's government, in that it's not for me to tell a New Zealander what's up with their elected officials. That's a little much for a foreigner. And when people from outside of the U.S. do it to me, I understand it, because the U.S. is a bit like a reality show.
Sure.
Especially with the president before this one. And so I expect it and I understand it, but I will not do it to any other country. And so by the time I get to New Zealand, if anything really insane has happened in the last 20 days, I'll be as conversant as one can be by reading BBC World News or whatever.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, our prime minister before the one we have now, Jacinda, got into quite a bit of worldwide news and made a big splash and stuff. So,
and I thought she was really cool, I must say. I mean, I think if you're going to say anything, you should be at least positive.
She was cool. She's actually been up to my place and gone through my record collection. How cool is that?
No, that's
because everybody in New Zealand knows everybody.
No, it's like all 8 of you turn the light off when you leave.
Exactly.
No, I've just seen her on the news when, like, she says something and everyone's like, well, that's a bit much for her. I'm like, no, I thought that was really cool. And so, there I am making comment on an elected official in New Zealand. I would say that I would make comment on someone in another country, but only if it's laudatory. It's not for me to be critical.
Right.
But I think for such a young person, as a female, she's going up against like one of the worst boys clubs ever created in the Western world. And I thought what I've seen, she carried herself really, really well. She's damn impressive, I think.
She took some heat from idiots here, if I may say so, in New Zealand, anti-vaxxers and, misogynists of both sexes she basically went out, she resigned because it was just no point in carrying on. She had no more gas in the tank, she said, but it was more than that. She was there was just no place for her to go.
Was it her and the president or prime minister? I forget the Scandinavian.
Yeah, country. Norway or someplace. Yeah.
And they did that press conference, and one of the questions was, hey, little lady. Yeah. And okay, that's the last thing I saw, and I watched it more than once.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm so sorry that you two are enduring this, but I thought both of them basically kick some ass.
Yep.
But, to be an elected official, like in the executive office of a country, and have some guy just be able to say that without any sense of respect, it would have been, I don't have that strength. I would not have been able to retain my composure the way
I hear you.
or the way they did.
Yeah. Now you seem to have some kind of ongoing relationship with Australia. I see you just did a film with Sia, who's Australian. Musician and apparently director these days, and you do a podcast, and you're on Rolling Stone Australia. So what's your relationship with that country, with our neighbors to the west?
I've been going to that part of the world for many, many years. The reason I've been to Australia like 40 some times and New Zealand like 15 or 20 times is just it took a long time for me to get enough of a fan base in New Zealand for a promoter to let me land and do a show.
Yep.
And even with that, I'm one of those people, I'll do a show in a living room. I just want to perform. I'm a pretty generic performer type. We'll pay to play. And so for many, many years, like they said, well, you can do New Zealand, but you're going to lose $2,000.
Right.
And I'm not exactly turning up a lot of money at my show, so I can't really afford to do that. But then over the years, it became, hey, at least you can break even. That I'll take.
Right.
And so that's what got me to New Zealand. And then it said, and now it's like, okay, you're not going to make much money, but you won't get skinned alive. Hey, it's a show. We'll take it. And we're Australia on the first show, the first time there, it was just like, I clicked with that country, and it just went from strength to strength, from clubs to the symphony, the Sydney Opera House,
right?
Like multiple nights, literally. And New Zealand was slower, and that's not a take on the people there. It's just that I'm surprised I get a gig anywhere, and so I would have come to New Zealand every time I went to Australia. Is just I just could not generate the interest. And even now, it's a very small audience. But hey, I'll take it. I'm grateful.
Right. So do you find that people react to you and respond to you differently in different parts of the world in general?
Not drastically. Maybe culturally, in that Australians and New Zealanders are a loud, joyful audience. You hit them with something funny, they'll let you know.
Right.
Or if you say something like they don't like, they'll let you know.
Right.
In Germany, you can be firing on all cylinders and they'll sit quietly.
Really?
A few strained smiles. Right. And you think, oh no, I'm bombing. And then after the end of the show, standing ovation. And after the show, I've seen you 15 times. That was my favorite time. Well, where were you while I was on stage? Well, I was being quiet, so I didn't interrupt you. Oh, and so sometimes continental European audiences can be very quiet, and it's very tempting to go like, is there anybody out there? Is this thing on? And even when you say something funny, they'll kind of laugh into their hand. And then you get to England, where it's just like laughter, the roof is flapping.
Yep.
And so the material is basically the same. But in some audiences, just more effervescent than others. It's not like you're going to say tomorrow's Thursday and in Austria, they're deeply offended. And so the differences are minimal. There's no place that's awful to be on stage. There's just some places where maybe English isn't spoken as much. Like I just did my first ever show in Estonia.
Oh, right. Yep.
And it was amazing. It was like a PA, Stalin installed the PA a while ago. And
of course he did.
I'm just glad the plaster didn't come out of the ceiling. The audience was like hanging in there with English, but they were really cool.
Yep.
But you could tell English is spoken, but not like it's spoken in other countries.
Right.
And so that will be the difference between a show in Poland and a show in Berlin, Germany.
Gotcha. So to get back to the content of what you're going to talk about, I'm kind of curious as to how you feel about what's going on in the States, especially politically and socially these days. It's been a long, everything's changed since last time you were here. It feels like a whole different world out there. And of course, we all see it. I moved here from upstate New York. And when I moved here in 94, I was extremely surprised at how the U.S. looked from outside of the U.S.
Yeah.
This is right when OJ was racing down the street and blah, blah, blah. And watching it from here was bizarre, to say the least. So, do you kind of keep that in mind? And what are you bringing to us? And what are your thoughts about how things are going there?
Well, before I answer that, let me comment on what you just said before. I write every day. Literally, I write every day. Most of it's crap, but I do my best. Some of my best observations of the United States are made when I'm outside of the United States. And so to get an extrospective, if you will, view of the country, when I'll watch MSNBC online and or look at the headlines and just go, wow. And then go, wait a minute, I pay taxes in that place.
Yep.
But when you look at it from afar, you don't wonder why the rest of the world looks at the United States and just wonders what's in the water.
Yeah.
Or maybe too much freedom is not necessarily a good thing without the intellectual and moral responsibility ingrained in people's brain pans. And so, being outside of the United States, looking in, madhouse. And honestly, it sounds crazy. There's no other place I'd rather live. But it is a Phillies Flyer game from coast to coast. It's a rough room, as they say.
Right.
And so what I think is, and to be succinct, as far as the United States, you being a veteran of the place, America, in my opinion, since from its early days of genocide and stealing people to build the infrastructure to now, has been an equation. Genocide plus slavery plus innovation plus war plus the stock market, plus. So what does it equal? When do we stop adding and just say it is this? I think the equal sign hit the equation with Reagan. Mm-hmm. So what is it? It's what it was in the creative minds of the founding fathers. 5 people got money and everyone else can pound the proverbial sand.
Right.
And slavery, while it's illegal on the books, so we'll just call it minimum wage because you can't call it slavery anymore. And so basically, Americans are now residing with all the chickens that have come home to roost.
Yeah.
And that's how a guy like Donald Trump can be elected. And how did he become popular? By making many appearances on Howard Stern, Larry King, and having a really awful reality show. Mm-hmm. A guy whose hair screams denial becomes the president of the United States. When I was a little kid and Nixon was around, no Republican would have voted for Donald Trump.
Right.
Even in Arkansas, Kentucky, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, Texas, North Dakota, Utah, they would have gone, are you kidding me, man? He's never even read the Constitution. And so those days, I think we were just waking up, and I think we're all present now. And what was said in back rooms is now said on, in broad daylight, and everything that used to live under rocks is now on Main Street.
Yeah.
And there you are, and there it is. And that's the United States today. All is known and all is being shown.
Yeah, it's pretty scary.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And
it's going to get scarier before it gets better.
Well, I guess that's what I was going to ask you. Is there a light at the end of the tunnel, or are you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You think?
Young people.
Yeah.
I think a lot of what is making America so challenging is generational. And I've been telling audiences all over the world for the last 2 years that the United States is basically waiting for people like me, Joe Biden, and Dick Cheney to toddle off the coil, and we'll all be dead by November. So there's nothing to fear. Just keep voting.
Right.
And so I think a lot of people, people of my age and older. I'm a grown up in some respects, in that I'm an adult, and you can't change my mind on much. Mm-hmm. In that Iggy Pop is the undisputed heavyweight champion of rock and roll. That's my opinion. There's nothing you're going to say that's going to move me off that point. I think global climate change is real. There's nothing you can show me that's going to move me off that point of view. And so if you're an anti-vaxxer type, you're going to have to wait for me to die off, because I'm never changing my opinion about a vaccine's a good thing for me.
Yep.
And so those who are homophobic or racist or you will not replace us or whatever, they're not 19 years of age. I mean, there's a few. They're mostly my age or older, and we don't have long for this world. So I think before this century's over, you're going to see a radical demographic shift in the United States. And that's why the powers that be, there are a lot of things. Stupid is not one of them. They see this, and that's why they gin up, here come the immigrants. So everyone's going to take everything from you, white man.
Yep.
And that's why you're seeing, like, it's an insect in its last seconds where the legs kick violently up at the sky.
Right.
That's what you're seeing now, because the white power structure knows that the ground is shifting beneath their feet, and they're just trying to get a few more drops of honey out of the sponge before it goes dry. And so that's why there's all the voter suppression and all the well-financed hatred, because they know it's coming to an end.
Gotcha. All right. Now to switch gears a little bit, the film that you were in was called Music. And so
was Sia?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
Neither have I. But anyway, where I was going was to talk about music. I know you've kind of retired from making music yourself. I was curious if there's any person or situation where you would reconsider that if you got the chance to work with so-and-so,
No. And I've been offered some people I greatly admire have said, hey, let's do a thing. Like amazing people, why they contacted me, I have no idea, in that I would only slow them down. And I said no to, I said no to all of them.
Right.
Keith Levine, Public Image. Are you kidding me? He wrote me like, dude, let's do something. I'm like, I'm done with music. And whoa. I mean, that guy is one of the best guitar players, I think. I mean, amazing. I only would have slowed him down, but I said no thanks, because I'm done. And when I'm done with something, I'm pretty done with it. Yeah.
I think you said, you just didn't have anything more to contribute. And of course, there are musicians around these days who are going and seemingly going forever. Are there any that you think should have taken the same approach to their career as you did and go, well, you really aren't contributing?
Well, I have a rule. If I'm going to say anything derogatory to about anybody, unless it's an elected official,
okay,
they got to be in the room with me.
Oh, fair enough.
And so I think there's some bands, I just don't think they make essential music anymore.
Right.
Because, and what screwed them up? Success.
Yeah.
Hemingway got a lot wrong, racism, misogyny. I mean, he was a real pig. But in his Nobel acceptance speech, he said success is often the death of the talent of the writer.
Right.
And money and comfort and success often leads to second guessing and a level of comfort where what got you to that success in the first place is now been replaced by a big car in a really nice living environment. And I'm not saying success is bad. I'm just saying it's a really dangerous quantity, and people should be really damn careful with it when it comes their way.
Right. Have you consciously avoided it?
Yeah.
Yeah. How so?
I dress and comport myself kind of sort of as I did 40 years ago.
Right.
You could take all the clothes on my body right now. It's about $15 worth of clothes. And I'm not trying to go, oh, I'm a man of the people. I live alone in a very small and unremarkable house on purpose. The thing I like about this house is I don't have any neighbors. And so I get extra super left alone.
Right.
Punk rock instructs me that it's only the work that is essential. And so applause, I like that an audience likes me. I like them more than they like me. Don't tell anybody. And I need them more than they'll ever need me. And so, but I don't think after I finish a show and people applaud that I'm like, hey, I'm a big deal. I'm like, I got a show tomorrow night. So I got to get hydrated and get to sleep to repair my voice. And so I'm always trying to make something good, a good book, a good set of material. I've made a lot of money in my life, and I'd like to say I survived wealth. Okay. And I live fathoms below my means, and I'm very happy to report that a more affluent lifestyle has no appeal to me whatsoever. Believe it or not, I'm fine with my Mazda 6 and heating up a can of something for dinner.
Right.
And the occasional sushi is good, but I could live a lot differently. I just it's not what I want to do with money.
Right. So that sounds very punk rock, and so I'm of a similar vintage to you. So punk, was a thing for me when I was like 20 years old. I was like, oh my God. So what do you think punk got right, and what do you think the punk thing got wrong?
I think punk got right. It cured rock and roll.
Right.
Of 20-minute drum solos. And what did it get wrong? It's hard to assign blame because, Chuck Dukowski of Black Flag, a really smart guy, like a very astute cultural observer. And he never considered Black Flag to be punk rock. He said, he said punk rock died because it stood still. And as soon as you can buy a pre-ripped T-shirt at a shopping mall, it's done.
Yeah, right.
And he said that by about 1982. Yeah. He said when punk rock bands sing in harmony, and he pointed out one band which I dearly love. He said it's over.
Yeah.
And he said anything that stands still at least in the United States for long enough just becomes commercialized. And Greg Ginn, another very astute social observer, he said the revolution will be televised. Yeah, and that's why there really won't be one. Right. Because the revolution brought to you by Bud Light. And he said that in like 1981. Right. And I think it's one of the most astute and right on observations I've ever heard. And so what did punk rock get wrong? It's really good. And that's not wrong. It's just a fact. And so as far as like, say there's 100 things punk rock did, it got 98 things right. One or two things it got wrong, it set up value systems that were in a way arbitrary, in that in North Dakota, drinking, you got to drink or you can't be punk. In Washington, D.C., you can't be punk if you drink. Right. Or like, hey, Henry, you can't be in a movie. That's not punk rock. Like, says who? Right. Like, bite me. And so all of those, like, he's a sellout. And like, Maximum Rock and Roll in the 80s, Tim Yohannan, he was like this eternal witch hunter. Right. Jello Biafra's sold out. Really? There's not a day of Jello's life he ever sold out. He's a good man. He fights the good fight. He's taken it on the chin for punk rock, for culture, for the First Amendment, more than I ever had to. He's like Lenny Bruce, man. He stuck his neck out and like he paid the price. And so that's the inflexibility of some people, the righteousness of like, you can't have any sex if you're punk rock. Like, hey, shut up, man. Count me out. And so that's that kind of pilgrim inflexibility and that righteousness that was inflicted upon others. Hey, what are you doing at this show? Like, hey, man, Like, I'm here because the quarterback and all the tough guys at school can't find me.
Right.
I'm a freak. I was hoping I was in a room full of freaks.
Yeah.
And like, why are you telling me I'm the wrong kind of freak?
Yeah.
And I'm in, my idea is a very open door policy, like the little microscopic Washington, D.C. punk rock scene I come from. You know, if you are gay, we welcome you.
Right.
If you're the kid who can't throw the ball straight, which is me, you know, the ADD kid, come on in, man. You know, as Bobby Bird of James Brown Band used to say, I know you got soul because if you didn't, you wouldn't be in here.
Yeah.
And that was every punk rock gig in D.C. As soon as you walked in, like the fact that you could find this place and you want to see the Bad Brains, you're in. And the judgment stops. And so that's what bugged me about punk rock. But you know what? I don't see that anymore. Right. I see kind of a real avenging, we don't play that, come as you are. And so, and I'm a big advocate for punk rock. Culturally, it's the cultural change that I'm still recovering from, and I hope I never get better.
Yep.
I'm still in it, and so I think it got right, but it had an emerging culture has some wobbles, and I think the '80s with Reagan and Thatcher, there was some, some low blows.
Right. All right. So, you being what? How old are you? 64-ish or something like that? 62?
I'm 28.
28. Yeah, exactly. Do you listen to a lot of music these days?
I'm 2 years older than you.
Yeah. You're younger than me, actually.
I buy about, I measure it by the inch.
Yeah.
I buy about between 2 and 4 to 6 inches of LPs. I'm talking about shelf space. A month. And between 1 and 3 7 inches of 7 inches a month.
Nice.
So, and right now, I've got, and I'm not exaggerating, I've got about 10 feet of LPs I haven't played yet because I'm touring.
Yeah.
And about 2 or 3 archival acid-free boxes of 7 inches I haven't played yet because of touring.
Yeah. It's got to drive you crazy.
Well, it's been 2 touring years, and I buy records almost every single day.
Right.
That sounds like an exaggeration. And when I'm on tour, I was just in Finland, and I love a lot of underground Finnish music. And a lot of the tiny labels know I play them on my radio show. And they like me, and I like them.
Sure.
So when I was in Finland, 3 months ago, I was gifted with about 1.5 feet of Finnish vinyl. And so my road manager had to buy me 2 extra suitcases to drag it back. And I haven't played a single one of those records yet. And so I often go into a record store, and it's the ones in the US are pretty picked over, but elsewhere. And if I'm on a seafood diet with vinyl. If I see it and I want it, I just get it. And that's one restraint I don't have any restraints on. If I want the record, I just buy it.
Right.
So that's what I do allow myself that.
Okay.
And I'm an eBay warrior, and I go to all the auction houses, and I'm fighting for that Cramps poster or whatever. So I am that proverbial guy, and so I listen to records all the time.
Gotcha.
On the road, it's digital playback. At home, I have multiple analog playback systems.
Right.
And so I got to 3 pieces of vinyl last night. I'll get to a few tonight. My interview schedule with our time differences is taking me late into the evening. So it's going to cut down on my listening a bit. But hell yeah, I listen to vinyl as much as I can when I'm off the road.
Right. Well, I'm running out of Zoom time, but I'll get one more question in with you.
Sure.
I'll ask you the one everybody asks me that I hate. What is your prized possession in your record collection?
It'll be a bit cloying and sentimental, and you'll go, oh, because it's not nearly as valuable as some records I have.
Yep, that doesn't count. Yep, that's fine.
The most valuable is the second pressing of the first Minor Threat 7-inch.
Okay.
It was given to me by Ian Mackay, my best friend.
Right.
But it belonged to his mother.
Right.
And I miss Ginger every day. I miss his mom. She was amazing. And Ian gave it to me one day. He said, I just want you to know that this was my mom's. I went, Ian, you're killing me, man. Like, it brought me to tears. And so if my place caught on fire, I'd be running out of the building with that.
Yeah.
Even though I have Iggy Pop's high school acetate of his music with the iguanas. And so I have stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, of course you do.
But it's that record of Ian, from Ian's mom, that and my alarm is telling me I have to stop talking to you. And so that would be the one I would run out of the door with.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Well, thank you very much for all of that. We look forward to seeing you down here in, what is it, January, July, at the beginning of July. You're doing like about 4 dates throughout the country. Very cool. All right. Have a great day. And again, thank you.
Good. You got it. See ya.